Welcome to part 2 of my regular expression formula tutorial for Excel, and this is where we're going to build a custom formula that will allow you to ensure that the contents of a cell match a certain pattern. In this case, 3 lowercase letters followed by a dash, 3 numbers, then a dash, and 1 uppercase letter to end it. We want to ensure that this cell's contents exactly match that pattern, and that's what we're going to do here. This is part 2 of this tutorial. And here we're going to use what we did in part 1 and add on to that to create a system that you see right here that allows you to create a monster formula to check this pattern to make sure that it matches. If you haven't seen part 1 of this tutorial, definitely check that out. Before we start, check the video description and click the link to Teach Excel so you can download the files for the tutorial and follow along. And make sure to subscribe and accept notifications so you can see all the new tutorials. Now it's time to incorporate this formula, which is pretty amazing, if I do say so myself. I'm quite proud of it. It's time to incorporate that into the larger formula so that we can check everything that we want all at once. And this requires developing a system. I don't think there's anyone in the world who could just type this out left to right without memorizing it and actually get it correct, especially the first time. I think that would I don't think anyone could do that. It's just impossible. So you need a system. And here we're going to talk about the system now. You're not going to learn any new formulas here, or nothing compared to what we just learned. But the system is important. So we have our main cell right here. And we want to make sure that this cell matches a specific pattern. We have the 3 lowercase, but then we want a dash. We want the dash in position number 4. Then I want 3 numbers. Then I want another dash, and then I want a capital letter. It must be in that pattern. First step, go under here and do this on a sample worksheet so that you don't have a bunch of other examples, and just format it like this so it's all nice and beautiful. And this will help us create the formula. So underneath it, you want to create a section for requirements and write out the requirements. And go left to right. It'll make things easier. So we start left here with the lowercase letters, dash, number, dash, and uppercase letter at the end. And write them out just like this so that you don't forget what you're going to be checking for. And then also we check for the length of the cell. How many characters are allowed to be in the cell? And I put that one before all of the others because it's simple, it's easy, and it's a little bit different than the following ones. Once you have the requirements, then go over one column, and here is where you want to use some text extraction functions to pull out the relevant pieces. It's different with the characters because we just get the length of the cell. But for these guys, we have text extraction functions, and you can see we pull out every part of the cell, ASA, ASA, dash, dash, 123, dash, B. Just like that. So that makes it easier for us to work with it, and it makes our formulas a little bit easier to create. So once you have that, then you're going to go over here and you're going to create the formula. Let's go with a simpler version first down here. So you create the formula and you reference this cell over here. That eliminates the need to put the text extraction function or formula directly into this cell, which means we can create this, verify, make sure everything's good and happy, and then in the third column, we can combine it. You see this one looks a little bit more confusing, a little bit more intimidating, but all I did was take the mid function that we created right here, copy it, and I pasted it in place of B7. And that's how we got this complex formula. At the end, all we're going to do is to combine all of these formulas in an AND function right here. That requires that every check that we make here returns true. And that's why each one of these formulas here must return true or false. Now for the complex formula that I showed you, the special formula that I'm proud of right here, I told you to replace B6. I showed you this one because it's just a little bit easier to follow than if I showed you the one from the third column, which has replaced B6 with equals left A23. So look here, B6. Now here, we have the left function. You can see it makes it considerably more complex or confusing, especially the first time that you look at it. And that's why we build the formulas this way, step by step. Now let's go ahead and build out the formulas. So we have 9 here. We used the len function for that. It counts the characters in the cell, and there are 9 characters in the cell. But now I need to make that check return a true or a false. So what do? I just put a comparison operator on the end of that. So does this cell equal 9? Now it looks a little bit goofy having these equal sign equal B5 equal 9, but just remember that you need the first equal sign to make it a formula. Everything else that happens after that is just part of your formula. So here, does B5 equal 9, true or false? And this is a standard thing with comparison operators, by the way. You should know how those work by now if you're watching this tutorial. If you don't, you need to check out a tutorial on comparison operators. And as I've previously mentioned, for the third column, we combine everything so we have a nice, neat, succinct formula that references our cell up here. This guy we have already covered. Down here for the dash, we use the mid function to pull out the dash. A2, dash is the 4th character, and we only want to pull out 1 character, so we get a dash. Here is our dash. We want to make sure that this equals a dash, so we say, does B7 equal a dash? Remember the quotation marks around it because it is text. Yes, no, and then we combine it right here. I'm going to skip the number for a moment. For this dash, we do the same thing. We just get the dash in the 8th position, and we check it right here, and we combine it right here. So just the same as the last dash. Now let's go with numbers. Numbers are kind of interesting and very tricky because Excel tries to guess if something is a number, and it's not always a number. So here, we use the mid function, and we pull out the number. Now what has happened? Notice that 1, 2, 3 is on the left side of the cell. 1, 2, 3 is not a number as far as Excel is concerned. It is text. So check this out. You think you're going to be able to use isNumber on that? IsNumber. False. Looks like a number to us because it is a number. But Excel is not a person. Excel is a computer. And in Excel's brain, it sees that as text. So the isNumber check by itself is not going to work. Now notice if I type 1, 2, 3 in a cell right here, it goes to the right of the cell. That is a telltale sign that it is a number. Here, it's on the left side. So, how do I check if this guy's a number? Well, I got to convert him to a number. There are a couple different ways to do that. One way that I do in some formulas is just to take this guy and multiply him by 1. Now he is a number. Or, what we're going to do here is to use the value function. And where did it go? You can see the value function converts a text string that represents a number to a number. Basically, it's going to do the same thing as times 1. So now we have 2 numbers, and if I pull this isNumber over here and check that, it becomes true. Now, let me test it. Put an A in there. It becomes false. So it works, for the most part, how we expect. And that is how we get this formula right here. Equals isNumber of value and this cell right here. So as you can see, in order to get this sort of regular expression check for our cell, it does require some finagling. And I'm going to show you a better way to do this at the end or towards the end of the tutorial, actually. But in Excel with formulas, there are about 1 million different ways to do everything. So when you are creating your checks here, just use whichever method you can that will actually work. But as I'll mention momentarily, Excel can be tricky. So I'll show you the problem with this one and how to fix it in a moment. For now, let us clear this and let us go down here. 1 uppercase letter at the end. This one is going to be a little bit different than the other examples. So first of all, it's easy for this one. We use the right function to get the B off the end. You don't need number of characters because it defaults to 1. Okay. Now for our formula. We have an isNumber, we have a find, we have an upper, and there's our alphabet lower. So since we are dealing with a single character here, we can actually just use the find function and a regular, simple, easy cell reference with no confusing mid function right here. And just say, hey, can I find this letter right here in this list? If it finds it, it's going to return a number. IsNumber will then return true. So if I go like this and hit F9, you're going to see that it finds B in position number 2 of my alphabet list. IsNumber will then return true, because 2 is a number. Now with this guy here, note a couple things. So I explained the IsNumber and the find, but look what we have here, an upper. Remember when I talked about that previously? So you want to have all the same case in your list. Here we have our alphabet lower list. I type in alphabet lower. I know it's lowercase, but I want an uppercase number. So I use the upper function, surround it with that, and that takes, let's go here and hit F9. We see our lowercase alphabet. Now let us grab upper and hit F9 to calculate it. It becomes uppercase. And then the find function will pull in B10, and it will look for B in this list, and it finds it in position 2. So when you have one letter or one character to check, it's very easy. Now you could, or very easy compared to this guy, I should say. Now you could use this guy for a single letter. That will work. That's not a problem. But you don't have to. You can use this simpler version, which is not an array formula. And in fact, in this tutorial, the only array formula is this guy. And as a result, you're probably going to have to do it up here as well, where when we input this guy, hit Control-Shift-Enter. But now I have showed you how to make all of these formulas. And what you're learning is that in order to make a single regular expression formula, you're going to have to combine many different things. And that's just how it's going to be if you don't want to use VBA and macros. And the problem with VBA and macros is that then you have to have a macro-enabled workbook. And a lot of people don't like that. Here we can just copy-paste this formula and use it wherever we want. But now let's go ahead and create the final formula. How do we do this? Easy. Figure out if you want and or or. So and requires, here we go, checks whether all arguments are true and returns true if all arguments are true. Or checks whether any of the arguments are true and returns true, or false, returns, okay, I don't like how this is described. And requires everything to be true in order to return true. Or says that if anything is true, I will return true. And since our cell must exactly match the required pattern, we require and. And before we combine all of the formulas, let's just test them out like this. So select each cell. And now, there we go. And you can go over here and test it. Let's make B lowercase. False. Perfect. Let's put an A in here. False. And let us say capital S for the first one. False. It's really cool once you get this to work. All right. Now let's go ahead and put all of these formulas up here into this one. And the trick for doing this, causing the least amount of errors, is to start right to left. So we're going to go first for D10. So go down here, copy your formula, paste it in, enter. Go for D8. The reason that you want to start right to left is it's just easier to find these guys. If you start left to right, you will immediately notice that it's kind of difficult to find the right place to put everything. And if you made it this far without making mistakes, well, take the extra effort to to make sure that you copy paste everything correctly. And if you require absolute cell references, go ahead and make that down here. Everything for us is relative, and that's not a problem for this example. All right. Now, look what we have created. A beautiful, beautiful formula. But it does look a little different than this one over here, doesn't it? I'm going to show you now the problem that we are going to run into with the number check and how to fix that. So let us now go down here for the numbers. The only difference between these formulas, if it wasn't clear there, is that I have changed the check for the numbers, which we are going to do now. All right, so here we have numbers, and Excel likes to guess if something is a number or not. So let's go ahead and we can do both, equals value on this, and we can do the multiply by a number. All right, so we get 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Now let's say that someone goes up here and puts a dash between 1 and 3. Watch what happens down here. This will say 1 dash 3, but watch these numbers over here, 1, 2, 3. 43, 833. Well, that looks kind of goofy, doesn't it? That's because Excel now thinks that we have input a date. So if I go over here and let's go with long date. Excel thinks that I input Friday, January 3rd, 2020. 1-3, January 3rd. Well, that is clearly wrong. Excel used its magic to mess up our calculation. So let us use this formula to make sure that this is a number. This will simply check 1, 2, and 3 to make sure it's in the list of allowed characters. And we are going to create a list for numbers 0 to 9. That's our allowed characters. So let us put 1, 2, 3 in here. Okay, it's going to do just what it did for ASA. It's going to break up the 1, the 2, and the 3 and search the list 0 to 9 to see if it's in there. So let's go ahead and do that. First thing you want to do is go to Formulas and go to Name Manager and create your list of allowed characters and give it a useful name. Here we have numbers allowed. And yes, this is stored as text within quotation marks, but it's not going to be a problem. All we want to do is see if this value here, which is also seen as text, is in this list. And we're going to do it for each character in this cell. So now we have our list of allowed characters, and let us go here, and we will copy this, and let's just remove one of these. I'm going to show you how to change this now. We will change the cell reference, 1, 2, 3, and we will go here to alphabet lower, and we will change it to numbers allowed. Perfect. Now here we have our new formula. Let us check it. 1-3. False, but the formula I first showed you is still at true. Because this right here, it is not allowing Excel to interpret 1-3. It is saying, hey, is the 1 in the list? Yes, good. Is the 3? Good. Is the dash? Nope. There's no dash in this list of allowed characters, so I will return false. Now you can use whichever formula is going to work better in your situation. This one right here, or this one right here. It's completely up to you. In this case, we're going to use this formula. And let's see if I can correctly find him up here and remove him. This is going to be tricky. There we go, his number. So you never want to get to the point of editing it up here. It can be tricky. All right, let's see. And I did forget one little thing, which is to take mid and go over here. So this is why you want to finalize everything from the start, because if you have to go back and do what I'm doing right now, this is where you're going to get the error. So what you should probably do at this point is to redo the AND function. But let's see if I can get around that and remove the equal sign. Looks good so far. Let's see what happens now. Perfect. And now these should pretty much be the same size, and it looks like they are. So that's how you can create this monster. And those are some of the things that you need to watch out for, especially with numbers. Numbers can be a real pain, but so can dates, which are technically numbers, which you just saw here. So yeah, it's a process. Go through it like this until you get a nice, robust, strong formula, and then go from there. I'm going to go ahead and leave this guy in there. If someone didn't watch the tutorial, they might be a little bit confused, but you guys won't be. So you have two versions, this one and this one, that'll do the same thing. I hope you liked the tutorial. If it was helpful, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and make sure to subscribe and accept notifications so you can see all the new tutorials.